today we look at the selection of the research approach.
Yes.
And the resources that I have used and consulted is
Creswell.
Creswell and Creswell, the research
Nice.
design, which focuses
Research.
on qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods. This is in 2018, quite an old book, but it's still very, very relevant. That is why I'm trying to use it. The workshop focus now has got three aspects. We will focus on the three approaches to research, philosophical worldviews. We'll have a number of them that we'll look at under this topic. But qualitative designs, there will be a number of them there. We'll be looking at them, but it might be that I choose one to focus on to try and make a case of how you streamline the approach, the philosophical worldview, the design, as well as the research methods. Now, I want us to continue with this introduction, which says research approaches are plans and the procedures for research that span the steps from broad assumptions to detailed methods of data collection, analysis, and interpretation. When we dealt with the preparation of the research proposal, there was a section that we referred to as the design section, and that is where the methodology is presented. There you talk about the strategy, the approach, the overall approach. You speak about the designs. You have to present the specific methods for collecting data, for analyzing data, and for sampling the research participants. So this, what we're treating now here, is specifically that part of the section. It's part of the design. That is why they're saying here the research approaches are plans and the procedures for research that span the steps from broad assumptions to detailed methods of data collection, analysis, and interpretation. Let's just bear that in mind from time to time, when we must put this at the back of our mind as we continue, so we can make the threads that holds everything together here, from the broad approach to the specific data collection approaches or data collection methods, analysis, and sampling. This plan involves several decisions, and they need to be taken in order to, in the order in which, they need not be taken in the order in which they make sense to me and the order of their presentation here. In other words, I will present these approaches in the order in which the workshop is arranged. But it is not necessarily true that it is the only way of doing it. I do it in this way because it is the way I understand it. If there is any other way that some of you might have read or found it being presented in literature, you can also use your own approach. But the decisions that you make always defend. The overall decision involves which approach should be used to study a topic. Informing this decision should be the philosophical assumptions the researcher brings to the study, procedures of inquiry, which are referred to as the research designs or the strategies, and the specific research methods of data collection, analysis, and interpretation. Here, they just did not include sampling. But the selection of a research approach is also based on the nature of the research problem or issue to be addressed, the researcher's personal experience, and the audiences for the study. These are important determinants that would inform a researcher which approach to select. Sometimes earlier on, we said the research question should assist you in deciding on the type of the research methodology that you need to follow. So now here they're saying the research approach is based on the nature of the problem or the issue. So from the problem and the issue, that is where you formulate your research question. That is where you formulate the purpose statement. But what is also important is that everybody who conducts research has got some kind of experience. This experience might be academic, and it might be experience about life in general, how I understand research, or how I understand literature or any other processes in life. All this, my experiences, they determine what I will choose as my research approach. But also, we are advised here, the audiences for the study, the people that will consume the study, are also very, very important. If I want to write to a specific journal, or I want to publish my article in a specific journal, they've got specific criteria and the standard that you must follow. So they provide guidelines on how you need to prepare the article. They will tell you how to put the abstract, where to put the methods, and where to put discussions. And in other words, the entire structuring of the article. And you should be aware that there are articles that publish discipline-specific articles. So it is about, if it is about law, you might find that there is a journal that specializes on that one. If it is about medicine, you might find that there is a journal about medicine or any other social aspect. So there, in other words, you have to take into account when you prepare your research process, the research approach that you follow, you put all this into account to make sure that you are not at tangent. Otherwise, the consumers of your product would find it difficult to deal with you. So if it is the authors or the editors of any publication, they might even reject the proposed article. Thus, during these workshops, colleagues, research approaches, research designs, and research methods are three key terms that represent a perspective about research that represents information in a successive way from broad constructions, which is a broad research approach and of research, to the narrow procedures of the methods. We have said we would move from the paradigms or the worldviews, then we come to the research designs or the research inquiry strategies, then until the specific research methods. So all these aspects are going to be part and parcel of what we will look at in this workshop. So let's just start with the three approaches of research. In this workshop, three research approaches are advanced as qualitative, quantitative, and mixed methods approaches. Unquestionably, the three approaches are not as discrete as they first appear. Qualitative and quantitative approaches should not be viewed as rigid, distinct categories, polar opposite, or dichotomies. Later on, they will explain to you that I think they see it as a continuum. In other words, the mixed method sits in the middle. But as soon as one moves towards either qualitative or quantitative, then the studies might be referred as qualitative or quantitative, because it has got a lot to do with qualitative. Not that it has divorced the other approach totally. It might have shifted away from quantitative, then leaning towards qualitative, then it is referred to as qualitative study. And if it leans more and it has got a lot of characteristics of quantitative research approach, then it is referred to as quantitative research approach. In other words, your qualitative research approach might have elements of quantitative, qualitative might have elements of quantitative, and quantitative might have elements of qualitative research, but mixed methods sits in the middle. So we are told here that we must not see this as polars, as two opposite ends, but I think we can see them as a continuum. The other one leaning towards qualitative, the other one sitting towards in the middle, the other one leaning towards quantitative. That is how we need to view it. Instead, they represent different ends on a continuum. This is what I was saying. A study tends to be more qualitative than quantitative, or vice versa. But mixed methods research resides in the middle of this continuum because it incorporates elements of both qualitative and quantitative approaches. Often, the distinction between qualitative research and quantitative research is framed in terms of using words, where words are more used in qualitative research rather than numbers, which are used in quantitative research. Or better yet, using closed-ended questions in quantitative research and responses, or open-ended questions and responses, which are mainly in qualitative interviews. And here I make an example of open-ended and closed-ended questions. And this is just an extract from a data collection interview from a mixed methods approach. This was in one study where I've used an embedded design. Embedded design is part of the mixed methods design where data, qualitative and quantitative data, are collected at the same time. So this is just an example. And you can see with open-ended questions, you end up at having a lot of explanations because the open-ended questions give an opportunity to the respondent to respond in their own words and to explore, say much what about what they're being asked. This is opposed to quantitative research because sometimes in this is opposed to quantitative questions because in quantitative questions, you sometimes put the what should be the outcomes up front, and you have got you force people into a box, and they can either choose yes or no. You can see here, sometimes we ask them, they can say yes or no, and the last one is do not know. It means they can only choose from the three questions that they've been provided. So it's only three choices. But with open-ended, it's countless. Then they can reuse any statement, they can respond in their own way, and they can provide as much information as possible. So this is just a way of making a distinction between qualitative approaches and quantitative approaches to show that indeed qualitative approach uses more of words as opposed to quantitative approach, which uses more numbers. A more complete way to view the gradation of differences between them is in three aspects. Number one, the basic philosophical assumptions researchers bring to the study are different. The second one is the types of research strategies used in the research. So, as well as the specific methods employed in introducing these strategies. So these are the aspects that we will look at today, and we will be able to see that some specific philosophical assumptions support certain types of research designs, or they influence the researcher to make specific choices. As well as they will be able to choose specific designs, they will be able to make a choice on the specific methods based on the philosophical assumptions. That is the worldviews. We will try to explore the worldviews, the specific research design, as well as the specific research methods. Moreover, there is a historical evolution of both approaches, with the qualitative approaches dominating the forms of research in the social science from the late 19th century up until the mid 20th century. But during the latter half of the 20th century, interest in qualitative research increased, and along with it, the development of mixed methods. So, before, historically or traditionally, quantitative research was a dominant research approach. But we are told here that later in the 20th century, the qualitative research started to pick up as well. And this was the same with the mixed methods approach. If we can just look at the qualitative research, this is research, this is an approach for exploring and understanding the meaning individuals or groups ascribe to a social or human problem. The process of research involves imaging questions and procedures. Data typically collected in the participant setting, data analysis inductively building from particulars to general themes, and the researcher making interpretation of the meaning of the data. We made reference to an inductive approach when we spoke about the literature review, saying that our literature review for qualitative research is open-ended, in that we don't finalize everything. Even the definition of concept or terms, we don't finalize. We open up, and a lot of things that we do from the beginning, we are open, we are flexible, so that when we start collecting data from the research participants, data can even inform us how we finalize our earlier assumptions. If we have to revise it, we have to revise it. We can only finalize the definition of concepts after we shall have gathered the views of the participants. So here you can see the same is said here. We hear about data analysis inductively building from particulars to general themes. In other words, we don't have set principles from the beginning of the study. We build everything from the bottom, and we can continue to generalize bottom up. So this is the difference between the qualitative and the quantitative research. But the final written report, that is why it is said it has got a flexible structure, because after we've gathered data, we go and revise even the literature review and even our earlier assumptions to ensure that it is in line with what the participants see, as well as the settings within which research takes place. Those who engage in this form of inquiry support a way of looking at research that honors an inductive style. We have said this over time and again. A focus on individual meaning and the importance of reporting the complexity of the situation. We do report like that. And sometimes you will see that positivists are actually against this, because they feel that we must not pollute research. But the qualitative researchers, in most instances, they've got subjective interpretation of the data. They use their own values. That is why we said their worldview actually influence the way in which they collect data and the way in which they interpret data. So data is not there. So information, knowledge is not there outside available. No, knowledge is created through the interaction between the researcher and the research participants, as well as the context, the setting within which the research process is taking place. So there is this flexibility, and the inductive approach, that is what I can explain about this. But we should say that our approach as qualitative researchers most of the time is so flexible. It's not as rigid as in quantitative research, where the set principles within which research need to be conducted. Now, about this quantitative research, which I have referred to now, is said to be an approach for testing objective theories by examining the relationship among variables. And here, this is the reason why in quantitative research, they can formulate hypotheses for testing. Even before you study, they will set principles because they do it deductively. In other words, putting up front that which must be followed and that which must be tested. So we test, we can either confirm and reject the theory. So these variables, in turn, they can be measured typically on instruments so that numbered data can be analyzed using statistical procedures. That we know is the characteristics of quantitative research. The final written report has a set structure as opposed to a flexible structure which is found in qualitative research, has got a set structure consisting of introduction, literature, and theory, methods, results, and discussion. So this is what should be followed. It's not flexible. In qualitative research, if it is there, it is proposed in a way that if we find that the findings do not support it, we can still revise it in line with the findings as presented by the research participants. But here we are so rigid because it is quantitative. Like qualitative researchers, those who engage in this form of inquiry have assumptions about testing theory deductively. Yeah, they put theories up front and they want them to be tested. Building in protections against bias. You see, this is where I say they do not allow flexibility. They do not allow researchers to interfere with the data collection process. They don't want you to influence what happens. But you must just follow set principles so that you don't pollute data. You objectively conduct your research. You controlling for alternative or counterfactual explanations and being able to generalize and replicate the findings. This is characteristics of quantitative research. They generalize, but in qualitative research, we always do not generalize. And the third approach is the mixed methods research approach, which is an approach to inquiry involving collecting both qualitative and quantitative data. It integrates the two forms of data, and it uses distinct designs that may involve philosophical assumptions and theoretical frameworks. The core assumption of this form of inquiry is that the integration of qualitative and quantitative data yields additional insight beyond the information provided by either the quantitative or qualitative alone. And in this approach, colleagues, you will note that every research approach does have shortcomings or some weak points. Now, mixed methods, researchers believe that when they use both the qualitative and quantitative, they are actually strengthening the research findings, and they can argue for triangulation. That if the quantitative approach does have some weak points, the qualitative approach will augment it by bringing its strength points, and vice versa. So this is what is meant in here. And this is the reason why some people would prefer using the two rather than either of the two. There are three components that are involved in an approach. Two important components in each definition are that the approach to research involves philosophical assumptions as well as distinct methods or procedures. The broad research approach is the plan or proposal to conduct research. We have said this earlier on at the beginning, which involves the intersection of philosophy, research design, and specific research methods. We will also touch on that one by one. We'll unpack. A framework that we use to explain the interaction of these three components is seen in figure 1. This is an example. This is just a presentation of what the designs would look, how the designs, their approaches, and the specific research methods interact. You have got the philosophical worldview on the far left, and at the bottom you have got the research methods. On the far right, you have got the designs. The research approaches are there in the middle. The research approaches embrace the three aspects. They embrace designs, they embrace the worldviews, they embrace the research methods. So a broader terminology that talks, that is inclusive of all these three aspects is research approach. So the research approach can either be qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods approach. To reiterate, in planning a study, researchers need to think through the philosophical worldview assumptions that they bring to the study, the research design that is related to this worldview, and the specific methods or procedures or research that translate the approach into practice. These three components are the focus of the following slides. And I want to pause here before we can start talking about the philosophical worldview and see if we are moving together. If there's somebody who wants to make a comment, they have an opportunity to do so before we can move further.
Mine is more of a clarity because
Yes.
I think the slide that you put before is sort of I don't know if it caused more clarity or a bit of a
More confusion?
Yes, because I've always been not sure what comes first, if it's the approach or the method. Because I've always known there are three approaches: qualitative, quantitative, and the mixed method. And the mixed method, then comes the method on how you do it, which would be the the data collection and analysis and so on. But then we will come to a point where we say there's now interviews or a focus group or literature which might inform what you're doing. So that's where the confusion comes in.
Okay.
Because especially when it comes to where you're using literature to say, okay, I'm using literature as a method for my research, but then what is the method? Is it qualitative? Can you use that for literature and so on? So if you can just unpack that for me a little bit, Prof. Thank you.
All right. The slide at the bottom there, let's just look at the research methods. It's making reference to data collection. It also makes reference to questions. It talks about data analysis, interpretation, and validation. So according to Creswell and Creswell, all these are specific research methods. That which you use to collect data, to them is referred to as specific research methods. You know, people will use different terminology. They will say strategies for data collection. When they're talking about the specific research methods, qualitative, you've got ethnographics, you've got under mixed methods, you've got explanatory, sequential. All these are designs according to Creswell and Creswell. But when I was checking their literature, they also make reference to them as strategies of inquiries. But these are designs. So the overarching, what we can call as an overarching, if we're talking about the methodology, remember here we're talking about methodology. Methodology is an overarching term to me. It's an overarching term that talks about the procedures. The design. Yes, the design, the plan on what you will do. Remember when we spoke about the research proposal, we said it is two-folded. It has got what has been done in the past. Mainly, you see this in the introduction to research. It will tell you what has happened in the past. But when you come to the design section, which is the methodological justification, it is what you want to do. Then you are writing in the future because you're putting a statement of intent. I want to collect data. And when I want to collect data, I will do it from a qualitative point of view. See, so once you say qualitative point of view, it means everything that you will use should be qualitative in nature. So there is this all-inclusive terminology which says qualitative approach. It means my strategies, my designs, my research methods, everything will be done from a qualitative point of view. So if I've chosen qualitative approach, then it means my designs will also be qualitative. Today, I have got an example that I will present. I will try and show how the paradigm or the worldview influences me to choose a qualitative research approach. And once I've chosen a qualitative research approach, then what follows, I know that an approach has got, apart from the worldview, it has got a design and specific research methods. So I will show that because of this paradigm, then that made me choose qualitative approach. Then I am forced to again choose a qualitative research design. And the qualitative design I can only give effect to it if I also use qualitative research methods. The methods, the design, the worldview, and the approach should be streamlined. Did I respond correctly?
You did. You actually even went over and above, because the worldviews I've totally been not even looking at them while doing this, not taking them into consideration. But from the explanation, I can see how they influence the approach or even the method that you would use. Thank you. And the design, yes.
Thank you very much. I will still make reference to them, how they influence the choice. And you will see how your background and your history and your worldview can really, or have already influenced the choice of your specific research. Even if when you have got a topic, you can feel, oh, I can only, if I'm a researcher and I'm a medical student, I want to, and I will be encouraged to research on the virus that causes a specific pandemic because of my profession. That will make clear later on.
Doc, there is only 2 questions from me. The first one is the class that was supposed to take place on Thursday last week. I think I went in there ready for the class and there was a notice that said you are not available. And today I tried to get into that same link and I found a lot of people there. And I saw that you were not there. Then I went to this link now and I'm finding you doing a different topic from trying to complete what we were doing last week. Please help me on that one. Secondly, I'm doing a topic on disaster management. And I'm still in the proposal stage, at the beginning of the proposal stage. I've done the outline on the same topic last year. Very excited about it. But now, when I was speaking to my supervisor, he hinted that, yes, to do so, you will do quantitative methods. Okay, I haven't gotten to the methods, but now he hinted something different from what I've been thinking from last year. I'm just worried. I don't know what you can say about that, because he's hinting quantitative methods all the time, including in my outline. I have been thinking of qualitative methods. Must I worry? Are we going to fight? Am I going to be demotivated? What's going to happen there? Just of you, sir. Thank you.
Hesh, Situzo, it's a bit hectic. I think what I would advise you is follow your heart, follow your passion, because like I'm speaking as a student, and I am a student, just to declare upfront. What I've noticed and what I've heard on the streets of WhatsApp and Facebook, sometimes you find supervisors, they unexpectedly push the student to want to, maybe the easier way out, or maybe what would definitely suit them, or maybe even their comfort zone. So my suggestion is do a lot of background on it. If you feel and are adamant that qualitative is the way, then produce the relevant evidence, because there's nothing more frustrating than having to follow what you are being dictated to, and then you end up hitting a cul-de-sac, and then nothing happens. So fortunately, with UNISA as an institution, there are lots of lecturers, experts, including Dr. Korombi, who can avail themselves one-on-one. I mean, usually at the end of the class, they always say that, if you need a one-on-one, send, make a booking and so forth. So that's what I can advise, because I also had the same situation with my supervisor. And fortunately, after a bit of how can I put this? After consultation, I'm doing mixed methods. So I was being channeled to a wrong mixed method design. And then after consultation, then I'm in the right, but unfortunately, because my supervisor, it's not his comfort zone, he is retracting a little bit. So I'm all over getting second opinions and third opinions. So yeah, that's my advice. Yeah, seek second, third, fourth opinion, and just trust yourself and trust the process.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And then earlier on, Dr. Koromi, but I think you had addressed it well. I thought I'll add my 2 cents worth between the design and the whatever, but I think, because I was thinking of an analogy, but so far I think the previous lady, she said she's okay. So yeah, let me pack it here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will do reflection on Shabalala's when we move with the slides, because we want to look at how worldviews influence us and how we need to respond to it when we research. Then the aspect of the method and the approach comes to the fore. We will still make reference to it.
Mine will base on saturation. Let's take, for example, I've planned that I'm going to conduct my research using a mixed method. And then the participants may be plus minus 40. And then I'm collecting data using qualitative for the first phase. And then you find that during that data collection, I've now collected data from 20 participants. And I can see that these participants are still giving me the very same information. Is it prohibited for me to go back and revise my methods and say now I'm going to stick with qualitative data, or I will say I've reached saturation, so I'm not going to be able to use a quantitative data in order to confirm this? Thanks, Prof.
Okay, so what I think is, just because research is controlled by objectives, by methodology, which means when you go into the field, you actually know what you want to do, and a research is judged by its completion of its objectives. So it's as you explained earlier, to say, okay, especially in qualitative, it's not like when you start, you are conclusive. I don't know if it is inductive. You can always go back and revise, but what you have to work on is based on your objective, to say, are the response from the participant able to fulfill the objective that you promised you want to fulfill. So if they are failing to fulfill objectives, it means maybe you may need to revise, or you may need to look at your research further.
Thank you, Dr. Kromi. I have a bit of a different approach to this. I'm convinced that the gentleman, he's reached data saturation. And why I'm saying so, during the methods or the procedures, one important aspect is to look at your population and then to look at your sample. So depending how many people are in the population, then you'll need to calculate your sample. So that will be a representative of your of the whole population. And then when you commence with the study, remember that you are aiming for, you are going to be looking at 40 people. And then as you commence and then as you continue, and then you find that whether maybe at participant number 15, it's exactly the same thing, the same response, then you've reached your data saturation. And then I think for me personally, what I think as well is, one would need to look at ensuring, how can I put this? In terms of, declaring this is, what transpired, and then what methods were you using to ensure reliability, validity, and credibility. So that's my 2 cents worth of or opinion.
Did you say you had already collected data from 50% of the respondents?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know. I don't have an answer. But I think last year these questions came out. I just forgot what we said. Some people have brilliant contributions, but did you do pilot study before, or it was just a straightforward field work?
No, there was.
Because there was pilot study.
Yes.
And because in pilot study, did you revise the data collection instrument, or it was left like that?
Not revised. It was left just like that.
So I think the data collection instrument was not wrong, and maybe it is true. It's correct that you have reached the saturation. The other aspect is what the other lady has said. She was asking you, the responses that are provided to you, are they responding to the objectives, to the study objectives, or the research questions, or they are not?
They do.
They do, ne? So
yes,
if they do, it means you are achieving the objective.
Okay, which means I can now discard or not continue with the quantity, right?
Yeah, I think that, then we agree with Nomhle that you have reached data saturation.
I have understood very well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Maybe that has been reached. Okay. Thank you very much. I see we don't have further questions. Can we continue? I want us to go to other aspects that came out as questions. Then we can try to respond to them in the next slides. We want to focus now on these different worldviews. Although philosophical ideas remain largely hidden in research, they still influence the practice of research and need to be identified. It is suggested that individuals preparing a research proposal or plan, they must make explicit the larger philosophical ideas they espouse. This information will help explain why they chose qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods or approaches for their research. In other words, their experience, their history, whatever they know, whatever has made them up, influences them, and that is what they must make explicit. In writing about worldviews, a proposal might include a section that addresses the following: First, the philosophical worldview proposed in the study, followed by a definition of basic ideas of that worldview. These worldviews have got principles that underpin them. They are assumptions on which they are based. Third, there should be an indication on how the worldview shaped their approach to the research. In this workshop, the term worldview refers to a basic set of beliefs that guide action. And the worldviews have been referred to as paradigms by others. Others have referred to them as epistemologies, or ontologies. And others have referred to them to broadly conceived research methodologies. Now, this is how different people refer to worldviews. Others say they are paradigms. I prefer the use of paradigms and worldviews. Others say epistemologies and ontologies. So we should not be confused if we find people using different terminologies. We must just understand the context within which the concept is used. Creswell and Creswell see worldviews as they see worldviews as general philosophical orientation about the world and the nature of research that a researcher brings to a study. Individuals develop worldviews based on their discipline, orientations, and research communities. If someone is from the School of Law or is studying law, their views, whether it is about research or any other aspect, academically, has got an inclination towards law. A social scientist would always have his interaction in his head when he approaches research. Remember, we've got advisors, we've got mentors, and we've got past research experiences that we had. All those have contributed to who we are and how we see research. So the types of beliefs held by individual researchers based on these factors will often lead to embracing a strong quantitative or mixed methods approach in their research. And this is the reason why, if I were to advise who to listen to between the researcher and the supervisor, I would recommend that the researcher be listened to and be the one who decides the research approach should be. Because this is the person whose worldviews are at course and that are influencing the study process. Although there is ongoing debate about what worldviews or beliefs researchers bring to inquiry, Creswell and Creswell highlighted 4 that are well discussed in the literature. And they are post-positivism and pragmatism. Here, I'll make an example of transformative paradigm so that I can make a living example how this has been used and it was implemented in the field. And we want to see if indeed it was in line, if indeed the underlying paradigms and specific research methods were indeed in line with it. And we'll look at the specific reasons for using that, for being influenced by that specific paradigm, then see how it has done to the research designs and the research methods specifically. And this is the presentation and the summary of the worldviews, the 4 that have been identified by Creswell and Creswell. The first one, which is positivism, this is the one that encourages objectivity and that the research process should not be polluted, that we must be objective. And this is referred to as a scientific paradigm. But constructivism believes that social meanings are constructed by the people that are involved in it. And when you're collecting data, that is where it is recommended that you listen to the research participants and you take into account the the research context within which research is taking place. But with transformative, this has to do with the political power and justice oriented. This has to do with the protection of the marginalized, that we can do research in order to advance the interest of those whose voices are less heard. So it has to do with empowerment, collaboration, and involvement, as well as participation. And I will make an example of this later on. And pragmatism deals with adaptive strategies that one adapts the strategy that is suited to the specific problem that is under investigation. Pragmatism is problem-centered, in other words. So that is the difference that is presented in terms of the four. They've got different beliefs, and that is why the assumptions are different. Another group of researchers holds the philosophical assumptions of the transformative. Now, I'm going to present the transformative worldview as an example for this workshop. There's a lot of information about other paradigms or worldviews, but I've extracted this and I will make a living example out of this so that we can see how we can make a linkage amongst the approach, the worldview, the research design, and the specific research methods, as stated earlier on. This position arose during another group of researchers hold the philosophical assumptions of the transformative approach. And this position arose during the 1980s and 1990s from individuals who felt that the positivist assumptions imposed structural laws and theories that did not fit marginalized individuals in our society, or issues of power and social justice, discrimination and oppression that needed to be addressed. And the transformative worldview encourages researchers to conduct research in a way that it promotes transformation, so that the voices and the interest of the marginalized are actually protected and promoted. There is no uniform body of literature characterizing this worldview, but it includes groups of researchers that are critical theorists, participatory action research. This is what I will make as an example. Marxist, feminist, racial and ethnic minorities, persons with disabilities, indigenous and post-colonial peoples, and members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, and queer communities. You can see that these, even in the South African context, are marginalized. And we have tended in the present day in our laws and our policies, we actually we have got a special focus on them, how to empower them and how to support them so that we can promote equity. Because as it is now, it is seen that there is inequity between the other groups and the marginalized. Historically, the transformative writers have drawn on the works of Marx and Adorno and many more others. In the main, these inquiries felt that the constructivist stance did not go far enough in advocating for an action agenda to help marginalized peoples. A transformative worldview holds that research inquiry needs to be intertwined with politics and a political change agenda to confront social oppression at whatever level it occurs. In other words, where people are oppressed, research can include theory and practice so that the aspect of practice can advance the interest of those that are oppressed. And this is where they refer to politics and political change. So an agenda is to bring change to the society so that people's lives can be advanced. In some cases, some groups will be poor. Therefore, someone will commission a research knowing that it will at the end not only contribute to theory building, but it will also act as if it is applied research. Applied research will allow us to build theory or to contribute to theory, but it will also assist us in solving an existing problem. So the transformative worldview encourages us to choose the research approach that actually achieves the transformational agenda. Thus, the research contains an action agenda for reform that may change lives of the participants. We've said this earlier on. The institutions in which individuals work or live, and the researcher's life. The researcher also will be impacted because the design itself changes the approach, and the researcher becomes, you will see later on that the researcher becomes a consultant, and the participants, research participants become part of the research team. Moreover, specific issues need to be addressed that speak to important social issues of the day, issues such as empowerment, inequality, oppression, domination, suppression, and alienation. The researcher often begins with one of these issues as the focal point of the study. This research also assumes that the inquiry will proceed collaboratively, so as to not further marginalize the participants as a result of the inquiry. In other words, the researcher is not going to conduct research in a traditional way, where the researcher enters the research sites, collects what he wants, and he leaves the people as they are. But when he exits the site, there has been changed, or the lives of the people have been impacted, and transformation has been ensured. In this sense, the participants may help design questions. See, the research participants may help design the questions. They may help collect the data to analyze information or reap the rewards of the research. I'll be able to demonstrate this at a later stage. Transformative research provides a voice for these participants, raising their consciousness or advancing an agenda for change to improve their lives. It becomes a united voice for reform and change. This philosophical worldview focuses on the needs of groups and individuals in our society that may be marginalized or disfranchised. Therefore, the theoretical perspective may be integrated with the philosophical assumptions that construct a picture of the issues being examined, the people to be studied, and the changes that are needed, such as feminism, perspectives, specialized discourse, critical theory, queer theory, and disability theory, theoretical lens to be discussed more in future workshops. And the key features of this worldview is that it places central importance on the study of the lives and the experiences of diverse groups that have traditionally been marginalized. Of special interest of these diverse groups is how their lives have been constrained by oppressors and strategies that they use to resist, challenge, and subvert these constraints. This is not always true, because in some instances, you're going to promote social and economic development. You might find that the people that are affected with this research have not been oppressed, or they are not actually resisting oppression. But you intervene there to actually improve their lives by finding a way in which you can promote social and economic development, which uplifts their life, the standard of life. In studying these diverse groups, the research focuses on inequalities based on gender, race, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic class. Yes, socioeconomic class is when you go to an impoverished community, try and bring in a project that at the end of the day ensures that they develop and the economic and social status is changed at the end of the research study. The research in the transformative worldview links political and social action to these inequalities. Transformative research uses a program theory of beliefs about how a program works and why the problems of oppression, dominion, and power relationships do exist. Yeah, this is the example that I'm going to cite for you. From here, I'm going to show how the design has been selected. That the dominant paradigm or the worldview the experience that the researcher had is myself actually. I am a conservator. I speak Chivenda. I live amongst the poor community in the Limpopo, and I studied conservation. So all these things, all my experiences have come to the fore when I were to conduct a study. This study was about tourism at the catchment of Lake Funduzin. Then I felt that to an extent, I can contribute to the lives of people where I was going to conduct research. So with this experience or with this worldview, then I had to choose what type of a research design would assist me in achieving the transformative agenda. So, because if I felt that I needed to change the lives of the people, my worldview that influences me is that one of transformative. Then, in other words, I must find a design that also gives effect to the transformative worldview. So, how can I achieve a transformative agenda? Then I brought participatory action research as one of the designs that if I implement, I can, together with this design, use its specific research methods to promote social and economic development. Now, I'm going to read something about participatory action research. The research that the design that I chose. And remember, I'm saying at the back of my mind, I was influenced by the worldview transformative. I wanted to see change, in other words. So I've chosen participatory action research. Let's hear what Creswell and Creswell say about participatory action research. They say, it starts here. Participatory action research assumes that complex social phenomena are best understood by introducing interventions or actions into those phenomena and observing the effects of those actions. In this method, in participatory action research, the researcher is usually a consultant or an organizational member embedded within a social context, such as an organization, who initiates an action, such as the new organization produces or new technologies in response to a real problem, such as declining profitability or operational bottlenecks. Two keywords is that the researcher acts like a consultant. The second keyword is that there is a real problem that has to be addressed. So I thought that PAR will assist that, and this is how they define it. They say the researcher's choice of actions must be based on theory, which should explain why and how such actions may cause the desired change. I didn't have a theory in mind. The researcher then observes the results of that action, modifying it as necessary, while simultaneously learning from the action and generating theoretical insights into the target problem and interventions. Yeah, here, some elements of this statement are correct, because while collecting data and while conducting the research, I was starting to understand what is happening in terms of tourism development in the area. So I was understanding that, but at the same time, contributing to the lives of the people whose lives would be better when I exit the studies area, because there you make them understand how they can pursue tourism as one way in which they can promote social and economic development. How could they venture into tourism activities so that they improve their lives? That did happen to them. And what was happening is I was collecting data so that I can learn and so that I can complete my studies. And it contributed to me obtaining the qualification for which the studies was meant. The initial theory is validated by the extent to which the chosen action successfully solves the target problem. This did not apply to me. But simultaneous problem solving and insight generation is the center feature of that distinguishes participatory action research. Problem solving, assisting people to develop, and insight generation, understanding by the researcher himself, when he will eventually document the outcomes and the findings from the field so that he answers to the research objectives and the research questions from all other research methods. And hence, participatory action research is an excellent method for bridging research and practice. Research to contribute to theory and practice to contribute to addressing real problems. This method is also suited for studying unique social problems that cannot be replicated outside the context, but it is also subject to researchers' bias and subjectivity. See, that is why it's very, very important in qualitative studies for people to understand their positionality, and they are required to be reflective in nature, to be reflexive, to look at themselves, the extent to which their values, their worldviews, or positionality interferes with the interpretation of data, interferes with the collection of data. They must guard against that and control their feelings, their worldviews. And the generalizability of the findings is often restricted to the context where the study was conducted. So it's not easily generalizable. We do not always generalize if we are in qualitative studies. The generalization is restricted. So it is said that even when we conducted BAR, we shall be acting as if it is a case study, and the outcomes are mainly relevant to the study site and to the study population. And here, I just want to demonstrate to show you how the study was designed. And you will see the keywords that come out from the study design. And this has been motivated by literature. It was cited from literature, how other people see participatory action research. So this was part and parcel of chapter 4, which was the research methodology chapter. It says, participatory action research and its developmental role. And I note there the keyword developmental. And if you go down here, I've marked participative and bottom-up approach in red, and below that there is development assistance again. And then the last one, the third world conditions. And all of these have to do with social justice, social and economic justice, that we would encourage through these studies the participation of the people that are researched. The research participants have got equal voice. They contribute and participate in the studies. Keywords again that are describing the impact of participatory action research. And the first statements have got key concepts such as the need for community empowerment. And empowerment has to do with uplifting the lives of the people. Whereas with other worldviews and with other research designs, communities are not empowered. Instead, the researcher collects data and they exit the site, and the people remain as they were even before the study was commissioned. But here, this is taken as an intervention that should impact and bring change in the researched community. We also see self-actualization as another concept which is very important. Self-actualization, it means these people start to understand themselves. And if they were poor, they could understand that they could come out of poverty if they take action. So they are involved in studies so that they can understand we can also do this. We can also research, and we can also pursue tourism development. And furthermore concepts, empowerment there appears again, self-realization, collaboration, and mobilization. And these are terminologies that are there, and that results from the use of participatory action research. Remember, this is when I was describing participatory action research as a design that has been selected to actually be used as an action agenda design that will bring change to the lives of the people who are involved. Transferable skills also refers to the extent to which skills for economic development in terms of the development of tourism activities. It means that when the researcher leaves or exits the study site, then people have got skills to be able to develop themselves or to be able to pursue economic development. Lateral, critical, analytical, creative, and innovative thinking. These are the concepts that come to the fore. And they were used to describe what the design will do at the end of the research process. Development of community is just another concept that is there. And all of these were done in chapter 4 while we were still describing. And at the end of the research project, these should have been some of the aspects that would have been realized on the side of those that were involved. So this is what I was trying to show, that there is going to be a link between the worldview and the research design itself. Maybe I must park here. I'm still going to show the relevance of the research methods, specific research methods, to the worldview and the research design. Let me park here, and if I see that you don't have a lot of input on this, then I will go to methods so that I can show further linkage between the methods and the design as well as the paradigm. Because my argument is the worldview, the paradigm, the approach, and the specific research methods should be streamlined.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm interested in this transformative, and I just wanted to check if my understanding is correct. The student engagement in quality assurance, for example, it's an area then that one would informally say constitutes into suppression, in the sense that as higher education institutions, we have not yet begun to involve students. So then so that is the interest of my study now, to say, how can we use student voices to transform quality in higher education? Am I correct to say then this transformative looks to be a good way of conducting my study?
Yes, I think your worldview is a transformative one. Then you must choose a design that will assist you in giving effect to the worldview that has influenced you. And you must also understand the transformative worldview is part and parcel of the, it seems it is, yeah, it does well with a qualitative approach, research approach. I think you are correct, yeah.
My question is on the pragmatist approach, the one that I'm using on my research. My question is on the justification part. When we justify our worldviews, do we justify using scholars' views, or we justify on our own perceptions? Because usually the supervisor will comment to say justify. They don't usually specify to say what are we supposed to justify. I just want to understand, when one is justify something, which lens do we take?
You use both. Yours first is you, and find where literature supports you, because towards mixed methods approach. It leads towards mixed methods approach. Then under mixed methods approach, you've got a number of designs there. Then you have to choose a suitable design that you think will assist you in achieving the research objectives.
Okay.
Yes, so, and this is a very flexible type. Mixed methods is so flexible in that it takes two. It would take the quantitative and the qualitative part. So you sit in the middle.
Okay. is it possible to use a pragmatist approach? Then you remove the quantitative part, because from some of the articles that I was read, they were saying although it have a pluralism in it, you are not obligated to use mixed method. You are supposed to justify and give sufficient justification, and it can be that. So yeah, I don't know if it is correct.
Are you a qualitative researcher?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have not read a lot about these paradigms, but I mainly read them from Creswell and Creswell. And Creswell argues that pragmatism is in line with mixed methods. They did not indicate that you can use pragmatism in qualitative.
Okay.
They did not do so. But I cannot say that it is not possible. If other authors are saying it is possible, you might find that they've got experience or they've written about it. I've not read it somewhere. I only studied this one when I prepared this lecture. But if you want us to, to do further investigations, we can look at it.
Okay.
Because pragmatism, remember these people sometimes use words when they say transformative, it has to do with changing things, ne?
Yes.
Then pragmatism is also adaptive in nature. So it adapts to the existing situation, and they referred it to the use of both, because with quantitative and qualitative, where it suits you, you will start by using the qualitative or use the quantitative first. So in order to achieve your objectives. So it augments the shortfalls of either.
Okay.
But we can study further. You and I can engage outside if you are interested to find out if it is possible to go pragmatic but only with qualitative.
It's okay, Prof.
Okay.
Prof, I just wanted to find out. I'm doing qualitative research. I'm still on proposal, more on exploring the use of social mobilization approaches to reduce HIV infections among young women from 18 to 24. So now I sent the proposal outline to my supervisor, and he said that I should focus on participatory action research. So I hear you are saying one needs to be a consultant, like you go there on a regular basis and engage with the people. But I wanted to find out, because I did not want to engage more with the target population, but with key informants. So I wanted to check if I engage more with key informants, do I still have to do consultative work with the community, or how do I work around this? I'm a bit confused now. I just don't know how am I going to work around this if I don't work directly with the target population, but I want to hear more from the key informants on how, like, if they have worked on the interventions to promote social mobilization, but how is it? How did they find it? Is it working or is it not working? So now I find myself not sure what am I gonna do, because I don't really want to work directly with the target population. Thanks, thanks, Professor.
Okay. Do you? I must ask you: are you going to facilitate mobilization, or you're going to find how mobilization was achieved?
I'm going to explore, not to facilitate. I want to explore the use of social mobilization approaches that are already, they've been there. but there is still
Okay.
high HIV infection among young women from 18 to 24. So I wanted to find out, to explore more on what are these key informants have done before, or that, something like that. So I just wanted to work most key informants more than the target population.
Okay.
So I'm a bit confused now. Yeah.
There are two ways of doing it.
Okay.
When you when I made reference to being a consultant, is that you are going to act as a facilitator, and it means the involvement of the participants will be more than them giving you information and you go away. That is another approach. When you do that, it does not mean that you engage with too many people. You can still choose key informants. For an example, in the area where I've used participatory action research, there were 7 villages in the area. Then I only chose to work with 4.
Okay.
And from the 4 villages, I could choose between 6 and 12 groups. I constituted 4 research teams, each of them between 6 and 12, between 6 and 12. So those are the only people that I worked with. And these were key, they were key informants from the community. I developed a criteria for inclusion, that to be included in my research team, you should comply with these characteristics. You should be a landowner, you should be a leader, or you should be an entrepreneur, or you should be a lead government employee. So I only took those. Then I could achieve my objective. But another way of doing it is to have in-depth interviews. Then you would have one-on-one interviews. You want to have them in a group, because my engagement was in a group, because I met groups. So it means I met only 4 groups. If I were to go once, it means in each village I will go once. But in my case, I had to repeat some actions twice or thrice. So I might have gone 4 or 5 times or 6 times to one village, because the process had a lot of activities to be done. But if I were not to do that, then I would have chosen to interview people one by one. And this is in-depth interview. So it means you can go that route. But this also depends on your worldview. You might find that you are not a keen facilitator, and you are not a keen community mobilizer or engager. So you want one-on-one. So that is what should happen, because your worldview must tell you, no, I don't want to deal with groups. I want to deal with individuals, depending on your background. This is how you need to convince the study leader.
Okay. This is very helpful. Thank you so much, Prof.
Yes. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Yes. Any other hand? No, I don't see any hand here. So it means I must continue to deal with the specific research methods. Rosina Nzama, before I deal with the methods.
Thank you so much, Prof. Good evening, everyone. I'm actually on the point of participatory action research, but also again, I just wanted to take you back to research design. We're talking about people who, if you want to take action into the research, whereby you are going to be active together with your participant. Now, there is this element that I'm on. Are we referring to the focus group discussion when we talk about PAR, or are we talking about just one-on-one? Focus group discussion, whereby your sample may be just a minor group of people, and then you take action even if you are part of the research. I don't know if my question is clear.
Just repeat that one. Repeat it for me, please.
Okay. All right. Talking about PAR, participatory action research. Let me give it an example so that maybe it can be a little bit clearer. I am looking at interviewing individuals, like for instance, my research is based on performance of students in the TVET sector, and also on performance of the lecturers, or maybe let's say teachers in the TVET sector. So now, if I'm going to do a focus group discussion, will I refer to that as a participatory action research, whereby I'm taking groups of students and in a classroom, and then we engage in a discussion whereby I need to find out if their performance have been affected by certain elements. I just want to hear from them, because basically what I intended to do is to do a qualitative research whereby I engage straight with the participants. So I'm not sure if I'm right with the participatory action research, because I think I don't understand it clear.
All right. There is a thin line between focus groups and participatory action research. In focus groups, you are not taking action. You are just collecting data. And the objectives of focus groups are not the same as those for PAR. PAR have got distinct stages, and I will be able to show them when I come to methodology, to specific research methods, because I took, in my case, maybe I should take you there. In my case, there were 4 distinct activities of collecting data. It was participatory mapping, then situational analysis, transect walks, and planning. So all of these do not happen in the same place. They happen in different places, and people were moving. And it was mainly because mine was field work oriented. And I'm saying, if you want action taken, then people are not just seated on one place, or they're not just giving you information. They make specific recommendations that are to change their lives. And that is what is incorporated into the research findings. In my case, the recommendations of my study was part of what they recommended. And I still remember, even when I was collecting data, I did not capture data. The discussions, anything that they were telling me, all the recommendations and all the situations that they were analyzing, they were writing on the notebooks on the field notes that I've given to them. They were writing for me. I just took it and translated it into findings. So action takes place, empowerment takes place, change takes place before you leave the site. And it should be change that can be continued even after you have left, if it is PAR. But with focus groups, you don't have an objective of empowering them, but you just want to collect information from a group of people. It is focus group interviews. But the composition of the groups might be more or less the same, but the objectives of the study is different. But all participatory action research and focus groups are all qualitative research designs.
Dr. Korombi, if Rosina doesn't mind, and if you don't mind as well, maybe I'd like to just to add and support and make an example of participatory action report research. Rosina, I think you also need to look at what is your objective, the desired end. Action research, you need to be involved in it. So, for example, with your setting of exploring performance with your lecturers and the TVET students. So if at cycle 1 you identify that probably the issue there it's a low motivation because of socioeconomic issues, then it means you need to now identify those socioeconomic issues, maybe do a focus group or a semi-structured interviews to identify and then not necessarily solve them, but hopefully close the gap. And then after that, you move on to cycle 2. So it's continuous. That's why they call it action, because you need to be involved. And that's why even Dr. Korombi says you are a consultant, because whatever it is that you find, but working hand in hand with your objectives and your research questions, you identify, you evaluate, you solve, you move on to cycle 2. It's continuous up until you finally reach where you want to go. So it's completely up to you, and whether are you into participating or maybe rather stick to your focus group and just move on.
Thank you so much, Nomhle.
Thanks for the input. So let me also, before we can wrap up, let me also show you the types of methodology, specific research methods that I've used for participatory action research. So you can see if they are aligned with the research designs, in which case, if they are aligned, then it means the research methods, the research design, and the world view, as well as the research approach, are all in line, because this is the streamline that we want to see in the consistency. Let's move to the research methods and see how in participatory action research I've used them. And it says this extract is from chapter 1 because it was summarized. Look what has happened. We had 4 research teams and for the purpose of collecting data. It was done in 12 months and so on and so. During data collection, research teams did not interact with one another except during the final catchment meetings. But furthermore, data was collected following 4 stages. The first stage was participatory mapping, where each of the research teams in their respective villages, they produced a map, after which they did situational analysis based on the map. In other words, they went into the map, plugged important focus points where they think where there were economic activities, they could plug it. Where there were tourism resources, they could plug on the map. Then they could even analyze that tourism resource is in poor state or is in good condition by doing situational analysis. The same applies to an economic activity. That economic activity is doing well or is doing poor, or we can improve on it or we can tap on it. From there, they took the map and identified places that they want to visit. They could want to visit the restaurant that they plugged on the map, or they could go and visit tourism resources that were identified on the map. Then where they were traveling and walking towards the tourism resources or on specific economic activities, they were discussing about them. And on the way, they could discuss how the environment looked like. And eventually at the end, each of these teams could sit down and have a final plan. A final plan was to consolidate what they've seen in the map, what they discussed, and what they make as specific recommendations to what the status of the tourism resources or economic activities are, and what they've seen on the walks when they were moving. So they could consolidate this into specific recommendations and into plans. That is what I used in my study recommendations. And this is just an example of what each of the village produced. And this was one of the maps that was produced by the Chiheni village team. So they could identify the blue was Lake Funduzi. In other words, they identified Lake Funduzi as one of the tourist resources. Ndalani Fountain is one of the fountains which they identified. If there is a secondary school, they could show education takes place there. If there is a primary school, they could also show like that. And then they could even show the chief scroll, the church, every activity, and most important features in the village have been identified. This was to help them when they were to plan their final activities on tourism that would contribute to their economic activities. And when I left, each of the village had their own plans for themselves. But I also used that as part of the final chapter to make recommendations. So these were the research methods that were used in line with participatory action research. And you could understand that participatory action research was linked to the transformative worldview because it serves the agenda of transformation, because it allows people to participate and determine their cause and determine the way in which they need to be empowered so that they can pursue social and economic development. But that transformative worldview is part of the qualitative research approach. So I've tried to demonstrate a linkage amongst the four components of the research approach. Is the broader research approach, which is qualitative research approach, then the worldview, which is transformative, and then the participatory action research, which gives effect to transformative worldview, and its associated research methods, the participatory mapping, transect works, situational analysis, and planning. So this is how I can say you can streamline the approach with its components. And if you were to do something on quantitative research, you need also to streamline the research approach with the worldview, the specific research designs, as well as the specific research methods. The same applies to mixed research approach. So all of these need to be streamlined.
Hi, Prof. My question is very easy. I just want to ask, Prof, which software did you use to draw this layout?
The maps.
Yes, Prof.
It was AutoCAD. Actually, I did not draw them myself. I requested one of the architects to do it for me. He used to have this software. Then I just took hard copies that were drawn by the villages, gave it to him. There were 4. Then he translated into AutoCAD and printed it for me. Then you could even actually didn't print. He gave me electronic digital copies that I could print on my own.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
My question is also, I'm having second thoughts on including the community mapping because I'm doing qualitative on an informal settlement. So somewhere I see the need to map the area, since when I look for the maps of that area is difficult to find, especially the one that elaborate key infrastructure on water, which is the topic that I'm pursuing. So I'm having second thoughts. That's why also I wanted to incorporate the pragmatist approach, where it allows me to use some of these methods in line with my qualitative approaches. So I don't know what to do now.
You can, you know what is important, what is interesting in research. Research is about finding things that are not there. And you know, if you adopt the approach that I have adopted here, I'm not even good at drawing, and I don't have technical expertise on doing it. But what I did is to ask people who know the area to develop maps for themselves. It's a very simple thing. So they do it and you do. So when you are saying you don't have information that has got infrastructure, so why don't you rather ask people to do it? Then it is going to be participatory in nature. I don't know if it will still comply with your pragmatic. It will become transformational, because they will participate and decide on some of the way forward and some processes of conducting research, because they will decide with you. They will say, okay, let's sit down in a tree. We can draw the map of our rural area. We will even be able to plug for you where the engine, the borehole engine is. We'll even show you the roads and the other main infrastructures, the fences and the water infrastructure that is there.
Yeah, I think it will suit, because from what I was researching, it say pragmatists see methods as tools to be used in research. If they work, it's a tool. So if it work, you have to incorporate it.
Yeah, okay. But you have not yet have your research proposal, has it been approved or not?
It's nearly there according to my supervisor. So
go and do everything. You can still change and redesign it differently. The other aspect is that a proposal is a proposal. While you go to the field and you find that it is not possible to implement, you change and adapt strategies that will allow you to move on with the data collection.
Okay. Thank you.
Then you work it back into the proposal. You work it back into chapter 1.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Super. And Martin, if you are ready, you can speak.
Yes, Prof. I was asking about last week Thursday's workshop. As it was cancelled, when will it be done again?
It is this one. We took it from Thursday to today, because tomorrow I will do the one that we were going to do today. I think it is on alignment. We will do it tomorrow. Then on Thursday, we still have another one that was scheduled for this Thursday. I'm just closing the gap tomorrow and today.
Well, thank you, Prof.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for engaging.
Thank you, Doctor. We also appreciate your time, and you're not feeling well. And enjoy the rest of your evening, students. We'll see you tomorrow evening again. Thank you.